Blood dripped from Maya Chen's split lip onto the playground concrete. 3 fifth graders stood over her fists still clenched, laughing. She was 8 years old. She couldn't stand up. But she kept her eyes locked on the 6-year-old boy, running away the boy she'd just saved. What Maya didn't know that boy's father was Sergeant-at-Arms of the Steel Guardians, MC. And when Derek Phantom Rawlings found his son Lucas sobbing about the girl who took his beating, he made one phone call. By sunrise, 8:30, motorcycles would thunder down Main Street. The principal dropped her coffee when she saw what was coming. The little girl who had nothing was about to have an army. Before we continue, subscribe to follow Maya's incredible journey to the end. Comment your city below. We want to see how far this story travels. Maya Chen learned early that the world didn't owe her anything. By 8 years old, she'd already buried both parents. A drunk driver on Route 17 3 years ago. She remembered the phone call. She remembered her grandmother's scream. She remembered standing at 2 caskets holding flowers she didn't understand while adults whispered about what happens now and who takes her. Helen Chen took her, 72 years old, arthritic hands, a pension that barely covered groceries. But she took her. "You're my girl," Helen had said that first night, tucking Maya into a bed that smelled like mothballs and old grief. "As long as I'm breathing, you've got a home." Maya believed her. She had to. Now they lived in Pinewood Trailer Park, Lot 14, a single wide with a leaky roof and windows that rattled when trucks passed. Helen worked as a hotel cleaner at the Riverside Inn, scrubbing toilets and changing sheets for $8 an hour. Some weeks they ate rice for dinner 3 nights in a row. Maya never complained. Not once. She'd learned that complaining didn't change anything. It just made her grandmother cry when she thought Maya was asleep. Westbrook Elementary was a battlefield Maya navigated with the skill of a survivor. She knew which hallways to avoid, which bathrooms were safe, which lunch tables belonged to kids who would mock her worn-out sneakers and thrift store clothes. She moved through school like a ghost present, but unseen, existing in the spaces between other children's laughter. Teachers called her quiet. Kids called her that weird, poor girl. Maya called herself nothing. Names only had power if you let them. 3rd grade had taught her the rules. Don't draw attention. Don't make eye contact with the wrong people. Don't expect anyone to help you. The rules had kept her safe. Until Thursday. She noticed Lucas Rawlings 3 days before everything changed. He was new. 1st grade, 6 years old, with brown hair that stuck up in the back and eyes too big for his face. He wore a leather jacket covered in patches, tiny motorcycles eagles, something that said Steel Guardians MC across the back. The other kids noticed too. "Look at the biker baby," someone whispered during lunch. "My dad says bikers are criminals," another kid said, loud enough for Lucas to hear. Maya watched him eat alone, his small hands gripping a sandwich he could barely finish. He looked scared, not the temporary kind of scared that went away after a few days at a new school, the deep kind, the kind Maya saw in her own mirror. She wanted to say something. She didn't. The rule said, don't draw attention. Thursday afternoon, the rules stopped mattering. Maya was walking toward the bus line when she heard it. Laughter, but not the good kind. The cruel kind that made her stomach twist. She turned. Lucas Rawlings was on the ground near the swing sets. 3 fifth graders stood over him. Brandon Hayes in the center, his expensive sneakers inches from Lucas's face. Brandon was 11, tall for his age. His father owned half the buildings in town, which meant Brandon owned the school. Teachers looked away when he walked past. Kids moved when he wanted their seats. He'd learned young that money bought silence. Nice jacket, trash baby. Brandon grabbed Lucas's collar, yanking him up. Does your criminal daddy know you're out here? Lucas's voice came out small. He's not a criminal, he's... Shut up. Brandon shoved him back down. My dad says bikers sell drugs and hurt people. Is that what your daddy does? Hurt people? No, he doesn't. I said shut up. Brandon's foot connected with Lucas's ribs. The 6-year-old curled into a ball, arms wrapped around his head, too scared to even cry. Maya's chest tightened. She knew she should walk away. The bus was leaving in 5 minutes. Her grandmother would worry if she missed it. The rules said Brandon kicked Lucas again. The rules shattered. 10th. Leave him alone. The words came out before Maya could stop them. Her voice was quiet, barely above a whisper, but it carried. Brandon turned. His 2 friends, Tyler and Marcus, 5th graders, who laughed at his jokes and copied his cruelty, turned with him. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Brandon smiled. It was the worst smile Maya had ever seen. Well, well. He stepped toward her. The trailer park princess wants to play hero. Just leave him alone. Maya didn't move. Her legs were shaking, but she didn't move. He didn't do anything to you. You know what? You're right. Brandon's smile widened. He didn't. But you just did. He lunged. Maya had never been in a fight. She didn't know how to block a punch or dodge a kick. She didn't know that when someone bigger hit you, you were supposed to fall down and stay down. She only knew one thing: as long as they were hitting her, they weren't hitting Lucas. Brandon's fist caught her cheek. She stumbled but stayed standing. Run! She gasped at Lucas. Go, now! Tyler grabbed her arm. Marcus shoved her from behind. She fell concrete, scraping her palms, but she scrambled back up. Run! Lucas ran. Brandon's face twisted with rage. You little... He hit her again, and again. Tyler joined in. Then Marcus. 3 5th graders against 1 3rd grader. Maya stopped counting the punches after the first few. She stopped feeling them after that. Her body curled on the ground, arms wrapped around her head, the way she'd seen Lucas do, while sneakers and fists found her ribs, her back, her legs. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She just kept thinking, he got away. Lucas got away. I did something good. It was over in 2 minutes. It felt like forever. Brandon stood over her, breathing hard, his knuckles red. That's what happens to heroes' trailer trash. Remember that. They walked away laughing. Maya lay on the concrete, tasting blood, staring at the sky through her swelling eye. She couldn't move. Wasn't sure she wanted to. A teacher found her 11 minutes later. By then, Lucas Rawlings had run 2 miles home, burst through his front door, and collapsed into his mother's arms, sobbing words she could barely understand. A girl. They were hurting me. She told me to run. She's still there, Mommy. They're hurting her. Sarah Rawlings called her husband. Derek Phantom Rawlings answered on the second ring. What's wrong? Someone hurt Lucas at school. Sarah's voice was tight with controlled fury. But there was a girl. She saved him. Took his beating so he could escape. Silence. What's her name? Lucas doesn't know. He just keeps calling her the brave girl. More silence. Then, I'm on my way. The school nurse's office smelled like bandages and fear. Maya sat on the examination table, her legs dangling too short to reach the floor. Her face was a map of violent split lip, black eye bruises blooming across her cheekbones. Beneath her shirt, her ribs screamed with every breath. Nurse Patterson worked silently, cleaning cuts that shouldn't exist on a child's face. Can you tell me what happened, sweetheart? Maya's voice was steady, detached, like she was reporting someone else's injuries. 3 boys. They were hurting a little kid. I told them to stop. And they did this to you? Yes, ma'am. Nurse Patterson's hands trembled. In 23 years of school nursing, she'd seen scrapes and bruises and bloody noses. She'd never seen a 3rd grader beaten like she'd lost a fight with grown men. Do you know their names? The boys who did this? Maya knew. She'd heard other kids say Brandon's name like a warning. But something in her stayed quiet. Not protecting them, never that. Just waiting for what she didn't know. I don't remember. The lie tasted bitter, but the truth felt dangerous. Helen Chen arrived 27 minutes after the phone call. She was still wearing her hotel uniform, blue scrubs name tag pinned, crooked smell of bleach clinging to her skin. She'd run from the bus stop, 72 years old and asthmatic, because the school's message had said, accident. But her grandmother's instincts had screamed something worse. The moment she saw Maya, her legs nearly gave out. My baby. Helen crossed the room in 3 steps, hands reaching for Maya's face, stopping just short of touching the damage. My sweet baby, what happened? Who did this? I'm okay, Grandma. You're not okay, look at you. Look at your face. Helen's voice cracked. Tears spilled down weathered cheeks. Who did this to you? Tell me right now. Some boys, it doesn't matter. It matters. It matters to me. Helen pulled Maya into a gentle hug, mindful of hidden injuries, and sobbed into her granddaughter's hair. You're all I have. You're everything I have. If something happened to you, I'm okay, Maya repeated, but her arms tightened around her grandmother's waist. I'm okay, Grandma, I promise. She wasn't. They both knew it, but pretending was all they had. Principal Margaret Foster appeared 17 minutes later. She was 54, silver-haired, with the kind of smile that looked practiced rather than genuine. She'd run Westbrook Elementary for 12 years, long enough to know which families mattered and which could be ignored. The Chen family could be ignored. Mrs. Chen. She didn't offer a hand. I'm so sorry about what happened to Maya. We're taking this very seriously. Helen straightened. Maya still clutched against her. Who did this? Who hurt my granddaughter? We're still investigating. She was beaten on your playground during school hours. Helen's voice hardened in a way Maya had never heard. Someone must have seen something. Principal Foster's smile flickered. These situations are complicated. Children sometimes have conflicts. Conflicts. Look at her face. This wasn't a conflict. This was an attack. I understand you're upset. Upset. Helen stepped forward, 72 years old and 5'2", facing down a principal who held all the power. My granddaughter has a black eye, split lip. I don't even know what's under her shirt, and you're calling it a conflict. Mrs. Chen, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice. I'll lower my voice when you tell me who did this. The office fell silent. Principal Foster's expression shifted. The practiced sympathy vanished, replaced by something colder, more calculated. Mrs. Chen, I understand your concern, but Westbrook Elementary has zero tolerance for false accusations. Until we complete our investigation, I can't discuss specific students. She paused, especially given Maya's background. Helen went still. Her background. Children from unstable home situations sometimes have difficulty distinguishing between unstable. The word came out like a slap. I've raised this child for 3 years. Fed her, clothed her, held her through nightmares about her dead parents. And you're calling our home unstable? I'm simply saying that without witnesses, without proof, I'm proof. Maya's voice cut through the room, small but fierce. They hit me. 3 of them. While I was trying to protect a little boy, they were hurting first. That's proof. Principal Foster looked at Maya for the first time. Really looked. And something flickered in her eyes. Discomfort, maybe. Recognition that this child wasn't going to be easily dismissed. But then the mask returned. We'll complete our investigation, she said smoothly. In the meantime, I suggest Maya take a few days to recover at home. These things have a way of resolving themselves. She walked out before Helen could respond. The drive home was silent. Helen's hands gripped the steering wheel of their 15-year-old Honda, knuckles, white jaw clenched. Maya sat in the passenger seat, watching her grandmother's face in the fading light. Grandma, no response. Grandma, are you mad at me? The car swerved slightly. Helen pulled over to the side of the road, put it in park, and turned to face her granddaughter. Mad at you. Her voice broke. Maya Chen, I have never been prouder of anyone in my entire life. But I got hurt. You protected someone. A little boy you didn't even know. You stepped between him and pain because it was the right thing to do. Helen reached over, cupping Maya's uninjured cheek. Your mother would be so proud. Your father would be so proud. I am so proud. Maya's chin trembled. The principal thinks I'm lying. The principal is a fool. She said our home is unstable. Our home is full of love. That's more stable than mansions full of cruelty. Helen wiped her eyes. Listen to me. What you did today that takes courage most adults don't have. Don't let anyone make you feel small for being brave. Maya nodded, but something dark had settled in her chest. A certainty that bravery wasn't enough. That being right didn't mean you'd win. She didn't know yet how wrong she was. Across town, Derek Rawlings pulled into his driveway and killed the engine. He sat for a moment, hands resting on the handlebars of his Harley, trying to quiet the storm in his chest. Sergeant-at-Arms of the Steel Guardians. MC. 15 years patched. 100 brothers who'd ride through hell if he asked. And today, his 6-year-old son had been attacked while he was 50 miles away, unable to do anything. He walked inside. Lucas was on the couch, wrapped in Sarah's arms, his small body still shaking with residual sobs. The moment he saw his father, he launched himself across the room. "Daddy!" Derek caught him, lifted him, held him so tight, Lucas squeaked. "I've got you, buddy. I've got you." He carried Lucas to the couch, settling him on his lap. "You're safe now. Nobody's gonna hurt you." "The boys, they said you were a criminal. They said you hurt people." Derek's jaw tightened. "What else did they say?" "They said bikers are bad. That I'm bad because you're my dad." Lucas's voice fractured. "Am I bad, Daddy?" "No." The word came out rough, fierce. "You're the best thing I've ever done, Lucas. You hear me? The best thing." Sarah moved closer, her hand finding Derek's shoulder. "Tell him about the girl." Lucas wiped his nose. "She saved me, Daddy. The boys were kicking me and she ran over and told them to stop. Then they started hitting her instead. She told me to run." His face crumpled. "I ran, Daddy. I left her there. You did the right thing. But they were hurting her because of me. Not because of you." Derek's voice softened. "Because of them. Because they're bullies and cowards. What that girl did, that's called being a hero. She made a choice to protect you. You honored that choice by getting safe." "Is she okay? Can we find her? I want to tell her thank you." Derek looked at Sarah. She nodded. "Yeah, buddy. We're gonna find her." He set Lucas gently on the couch. "But first, I need you to tell me everything. What did the boys look like? What were their names? Did any teachers see?" Lucas told him. By the time he finished, Derek's hands were shaking. Not from fear, from rage so deep it had its own heartbeat. "Sarah, watch him. Derek, I'm going to the school. Now." Bang. It was 5:47 p.m. when Derek Rawlings walked into Westbrook Elementary. The building was mostly empty, staff gone, lights dimmed, only the custodian's cart rolling somewhere in the distance. But the principal's office was still lit. Derek didn't knock. Principal Foster looked up from her desk, annoyance flickering across her face before recognition set in. Her eyes moved to his leather, cut the patches, the Steel Guardians MC logo, the Sergeant-at-Arms insignia. Fear replaced annoyance. "Mr. Rawlings?" She stood slowly. "I wasn't expecting... My son was attacked today." "Yes, we're aware. Lucas is such a sweet boy. We're conducting an investigation." "I don't want your investigation." Derek stepped closer. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "I want to know about the girl. The girl. The one who protected my son. The one your students beat half to death while your teachers did nothing." Principal Foster's hands fluttered nervously. "Mr. Rawlings, I understand you're upset, but these situations require careful handling. The families involved..." "What families? I can't disclose. Hayes." Derek watched her face go pale. Lucas described the main attacker. Tall, expensive shoes, thinks he owns the place. "That's Brandon Hayes. Son of Victor Hayes, right? The guy who built your new gymnasium." "Mr. Rawlings." "The girl, what's her name?" "I can't... What's her name?" His voice didn't rise, but something in it shifted. Something that reminded Principal Foster that the man standing in front of her had seen things she couldn't imagine. done things that kept her awake at night when she thought too hard about them. Maya Chen. The name came out like a confession. Third grader, lives with her grandmother in Pinewood Trailer Park. What happened to her? She sustained some injuries. The nurse documented. Some injuries. Derek's laugh was cold, empty. My son said 3 boys beat her while she was on the ground, for protecting him. And you're calling it some injuries. The situation is complicated. No, it's not. Derek leaned forward, palms flat on her desk. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to expel the boys who did this, all 3 of them, tomorrow. I can't do that. The Hayes family. I don't care about the Hayes family. You don't understand. Victor Hayes donated. I understand perfectly. Derek straightened. You're protecting bullies because their daddy's got money. You're letting a little girl suffer because her family can't afford to fight back. That's what I understand. Principal Foster's chin lifted, a flash of defiance. Mr. Rawlings, I've been running this school for 12 years. I don't respond well to threats. I haven't threatened you yet. Then what would you call this? Derek smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. A courtesy visit. So you can't say you weren't warned. He walked out without another word. The drive to Pinewood Trailer Park took 18 minutes. Derek had been to places like this before, knew the look older mobile homes packed tight together cars on blocks, kids playing in yards because there was nowhere else to go. People living on the edge, one bad month away from disaster. Lot 14 wasn't hard to find. The trailer was small, white paint peeling, a potted plant on the steps that someone was trying to keep alive despite everything. Curtains drawn against the world. Derek knocked. Silence. Then footsteps. Then the door cracked open, chain still attached, and an elderly woman peered through the gap. Who are you? My name's Derek Rawlings. My son is Lucas. The door didn't open wider. The boy from school, Helen's voice was flat, tired. The one Maya protected. Yes, ma'am. What do you want? To say thank you. To see if she's okay. To help if you'll let me. The chain didn't move. We don't need help from bikers. Ma'am, I've heard stories. About men like you, about what you do. What do you think we do? Helen's eyes were steel. I think you cause trouble, and my granddaughter has enough trouble already. Derek nodded slowly. He could have argued, could have explained that the Steel Guardians spent more time organizing charity rides and protecting abuse survivors than anything the movies showed. But words were cheap. Your granddaughter saved my son's life today. Not just physically, she gave him courage, showed him that there are people in this world who stand up when it costs them something. He paused. I don't know how to repay that, but I'd like to try. Helen studied him. 60 seconds. 90. Then the chain slid back. She's in her room, trying not to let me see her cry. Maya's room was barely bigger than a closet. A twin bed with a faded quilt, a desk made from a door and 2 sawhorses, drawings taped to the walls, flowers, birds, a family of 3 that made Derek's chest tight. She sat on the bed, knees pulled to her chest, arms wrapped around them. The bruises looked worse in the lamplight. Her swollen eye had turned purple. Her lip was crusted with dried blood. She looked up when he appeared in the doorway, didn't flinch, didn't look away. Just watched him with eyes that had seen too much for 8 years old. You're Lucas's dad. Yeah. Is he okay? Derek almost laughed, almost cried. This child beaten so badly she could barely see straight, and her first question was about his son. He's okay? Because of you? Maya shrugged, then winced at the movement. He was scared. So were you. That's different. How? Maya thought about it, really thought with the seriousness of someone who'd already learned that words mattered. Being scared and doing nothing, that's just being scared. Being scared and doing something anyway, that's something else. Derek lowered himself to one knee, bringing himself to her eye level. You know what that's called? What? Courage. Maya's chin wobbled, just for a second. Then she locked it down the way kids learn to do when crying doesn't bring comfort. The principal said I was probably lying, that kids from unstable homes make things up. The principal is wrong. She's not going to do anything, is she? The boys who did this, nothing's going to happen to them. Derek was quiet for a moment, then, "You let me worry about that." "Why?" Maya's eyes narrowed. "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. You protected my son. So that makes you family." Maya stared at him. The word hung in the air between them. Family, and Derek watched her face do something complicated. Hope and fear and suspicion all tangled together. "I don't have family. Just Grandma. Now you have more." "You can't just say that. You can't just decide that. Watch me." Derek walked out of the trailer 30 minutes later. Helen met him on the steps, arms crossed, face unreadable. "What did you tell her?" "The truth, that she's brave, that what she did matters, that she's not alone." "Pretty words." "They're not just words, ma'am. They're a promise." Helen's jaw tightened. "Don't make promises you can't keep. That girl's had enough broken promises to last a lifetime." "Then I better not break this one." He handed her a card, plain white, just a name and a phone number. "If you need anything, anything at all, day or night." Helen took the card, looked at it, looked at him. "Why do you care so much? She's not your daughter." Derek thought about the question, thought about how to answer it honestly. "Because 20 years ago I was just like Maya, small, poor, nobody in my corner. And somebody showed up for me. Changed everything." He stepped off the porch. "Now I show up for others. That's what we do. That's who we are." He walked to his motorcycle, threw a leg over, and kicked it to life. Helen watched him ride away, the card still in her hand. She didn't know it yet, but she'd just met the first of 8:30. That night, Derek made a phone call. It was 11:47 p.m. Most people would be asleep, but Marcus Reaper Stone, national president of the Steel Guardians, MC, answered on the second ring. "Brother, what's wrong?" Derek told him everything. Lucas, Maya, the beating, the principal, Victor Hayes, the trailer where a grandmother and her orphaned granddaughter lived on the edge of nothing. Silence on the other end. Then, "How old is she?" 8. 8 years old. Marcus's voice was heavy. "And she took a beating meant for your son. Cracked rib, black eye, split lip, bruises everywhere. School's covering it up. Hayes money, principal's in his pocket." More silence. Longer this time. Then, "How many do you need?" Derek closed his eyes. "Everyone. Done." The call went out at midnight. Across 12 states, phones buzzed. Text messages lit up screens. Men who'd been sleeping, working, living their lives suddenly stopped what they were doing. The message was simple. Child down. Innocent protected, one of ours. School covering up. Mobilize. By 1 a.m., 247 confirmations. By 3 a.m., 516. By dawn, 830 motorcycles were on the road, converging on a small town that had no idea what was coming. Maya woke up Friday morning to silence. Her ribs hurt. Her face hurt. Everything hurt. She lay in bed, staring at the water stain on the ceiling, listening to her grandmother move around the tiny kitchen, the smell of instant coffee, the creak of worn floorboards. Another day, another fight to survive. She'd been excused from school, doctor's note, mandatory rest, but the thought of going back made her stomach churn. Brandon Hayes would still be there. Tyler and Marcus would still be there. And nothing would change. Nothing ever changed for people like her. She rolled over, carefully mindful of her ribs, and reached for the cup of water on her nightstand. That's when she heard it. A rumble. Low at first, barely noticeable, then louder still, until the windows were vibrating, and the water in her cup was rippling like something out of a movie. "Grandma." Maya pushed herself up, ignoring the pain. "What is that?" Helen appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "I don't know. It sounds like..." The rumble became a roar. Maya stumbled to the window and pulled back the curtain. Her breath stopped. The street outside Pinewood Trailer Park was filled with motorcycles. Not dozens, hundreds. An endless river of chrome and leather stretching as far as she could see, more bikes than she'd ever imagined existed. And at the front, killing his engine, climbing off his Harley, was Derek Rawlings. He looked up at her window and smiled. Behind him, 830 bikers cut their engines in unison. The sudden silence was somehow louder than the roar had been. A knock at the door. Helen opened it, and Derek stood on the porch, his leather cut gleaming in the morning light. "Good morning, ma'am." He nodded toward the army behind him. "Maya's family is here." Helen's hand gripped the door frame so tight her knuckles went white. 830 motorcycles. She counted the first row, multiplied, and still couldn't believe the number. Men in leather cuts lined the street, the sidewalks spilling onto lawns. Some had gray beards that reached their chests. Some looked barely old enough to shave. All of them were watching her trailer like it contained something precious. "Mrs. Chen." Derek's voice was calm, steady, like showing up with an army was something he did every Tuesday. "May we come in? All of you." For the first time, Derek smiled, a real one. "Just me and a few brothers, the rest will wait." Helen looked past him at the sea of leather and chrome. Where did they all come from? Everywhere, Texas, California, Ohio, Florida. He paused. 12 states, ma'am. They drove through the night. For Maya? For Maya. Helen's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. 72 years old, and she'd never seen anything like this. Never imagined anyone would show up for them. For her broken little girl who had nothing but courage and a grandmother who couldn't protect her. "Grandma?" Maya appeared behind her, still in her pajamas, her bruised face a patchwork of purple and yellow. She stared at the motorcycles with an expression Helen couldn't read. "Maya." Derek knelt down, bringing himself to her level. "How are you feeling?" "Sore." She looked at him, then at the army behind him. "Why are they here?" "Because you're one of us now, and we take care of our own." "I'm not one of you. I don't even have a motorcycle." "Doesn't matter. You've got something more important." "What, Barm?" "Heart." Derek stood up. "Now there's someone who wants to see you." He turned and whistled. A moment later, the crowd parted, and Sarah Rawlings walked through holding Lucas's hand. The little boy was wearing his leather jacket, again patches, and all his eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on Maya. "That's her." Lucas broke free from his mother and ran. "That's the brave girl." He crashed into Maya with a hug that made her wince, but she didn't pull away. She hugged him back. This little boy she'd bled for, and something in her chest cracked open. "Thank you," Lucas whispered into her shoulder. "Thank you for saving me." Maya's arms tightened around him. "You're welcome." Sarah reached them, tears streaming down her face. She knelt beside her son and looked at Maya, really looked at her swollen eye, her split lip, the bruises that disappeared beneath her collar. "Oh, sweetheart." Sarah's voice broke. "Look what they did to you." "I'm okay." "No, you're not." Sarah reached out, stopping just short of touching Maya's damaged face. "But you will be, I promise you that." Marcus Stone stepped forward. He was 64 years old, 6'4", with a silver beard that reached his chest and eyes that had seen 3 tours in Vietnam. National President of the Steel Guardians, MC. A man who'd buried 14 brothers and never stopped fighting for the ones still standing. He looked at Maya the way generals look at soldiers who've earned their medals. "You the one who stood up?" Maya lifted her chin. "Yes, sir." "You knew you'd get hurt?" "Yes, sir." "Did it anyway?" "Yes, sir." Marcus nodded slowly. Then he reached into his cut and pulled out something small. A patch. He pressed it into Maya's palm and closed her fingers around it. "That's an honorary guardian patch. Means you're protected. Means every brother you see wearing leather has your back." He leaned closer. "You earned it, little warrior. Don't ever let anyone tell you different." Maya looked at the patch in her hand. Her vision blurred. She blinked hard, refusing to cry, but the tears came anyway. For the first time since her parents died, she didn't feel alone. Derek's phone buzzed. He checked the screen and his expression hardened. "Brother," Marcus caught the shift. "School board's calling an emergency meeting, 9 a.m. They heard we're in town." "Good." Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Let's give them something to talk about. The convoy moved at 8:47 a.m. 830 motorcycles rolling down Main Street, American flags flying from every other bike, the thunder of engines shaking windows and stopping traffic. People came out of shops, stood on sidewalks, pulled out phones to record what looked like an invasion. Maya rode with Derek, a helmet borrowed from Sarah, covering her small head, her arms wrapped around his waist. She'd never been on a motorcycle before. The vibration hummed through her bones. The wind pulled at her clothes. And all around her, hundreds of brothers formed a protective wall, keeping her safe in the center of the formation. Helen rode behind Sarah in a pickup truck, clutching her purse with both hands, watching the town that had ignored them for years suddenly pay attention. They reached Westbrook Elementary at 8:56 a.m. The parking lot wasn't big enough. Not even close. Motorcycles lined the streets, the sidewalks every available inch of space. The roar of engines died one by one until silence settled over the school like a held breath. Principal Foster stood at the front entrance, flanked by 2 security guards who looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. "This is school property." Her voice carried across the parking lot steady, despite the fear flickering in her eyes. "You can't just what?" Marcus Stone walked forward, his boots heavy on the asphalt. "Show up. Ask questions. Demand answers. The school board meeting is for parents and community members only." "We are community members." Marcus gestured at the army behind him. 830 of us from 12 states, all very concerned about how this school handles bullying. "This is intimidation." "No, ma'am. This is attendance." The gym was standing room only by 9:15 a.m. News crews had arrived, local first, then regional, then a van from the national networks that had picked up the story overnight. Social media was exploding. Justice for Maya was trending. Someone had leaked the school's internal emails showing Principal Foster dismissing complaints about Brandon Hayes for 2 years. 2 years. 7 victims before Maya. All of them silenced. Maya sat in the front row between Helen and Sarah Derrick, standing behind them like a sentry. Lucas held Maya's hand and refused to let go. The school board filed in looking like they'd swallowed something sour. 5 members, 3 men and 2 women, all of them glancing nervously at the leather-clad crowd that filled every seat and lined every wall. Victor Hayes walked in last. He was 53, silver-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than Helen's monthly income. Owner of Hayes Development Corporation. Builder of the school's new gymnasium. The man whose checkbook had purchased his son's immunity for years. He sat in the front row across the aisle from Maya. When their eyes met, he smiled, a small, confident smile that said he'd already won. Maya didn't look away. Board President William Thornton called the meeting to order. "We're here to address the incident that occurred on Thursday afternoon involving several students. I want to remind everyone that this is an educational matter and we expect civil discourse." Civil discourse. A woman in the back stood up. Her name was Patricia Mendez, and her daughter had been Brandon's victim 2 years ago. "You told me to be civil when my daughter came home crying every day. You told me to be civil when the school did nothing. I'm done being civil. Ma'am, please sit down. My daughter tried to kill herself." Patricia's voice cracked. "Because of what that boy did to her. And you covered it up. You all covered it up." The room erupted. More parents stood. More voices joined the chorus. Stories spilled out. Years of complaints, ignored incidents, buried victims blamed. The school board sat frozen, their carefully prepared talking points, useless against the tide of rage that had been building long before Maya took her beating. Marcus Stone waited for the noise to reach its peak. Then he stood and somehow, without raising his voice, cut through all of it. "My name is Marcus Stone, United States Marine Corps retired. 3 tours in Vietnam, Purple Heart, Bronze Star." He let that settle. "I've seen combat. I've buried brothers. And I rode 400 miles through the night because an 8-year-old girl showed more courage than every adult in this building combined." Silence. Maya Chen. He turned toward her. Stand up, sweetheart. Maya hesitated. Helen squeezed her hand. Lucas nodded encouragingly. She stood. The room saw her face for the first time. The black eye, the split lip, the bruises that makeup couldn't hide. Someone gasped. Someone else started crying. "This is what courage looks like," Marcus said. "This is what happens when a child does what adults won't." She stood between bullies and a little boy. She took every hit so he could run. "And what did this school do?" He turned to Principal Foster. "You called her a liar. You blamed her background. You protected the boys who did this because their daddy writes checks." He held up a folder. "I have emails. I have witness statements. I have documentation of 7 previous incidents involving Brandon Hayes, all of them buried, all of them paid off." Victor Hayes shot to his feet. "This is outrageous. You can't come in here and make accusations." "Sit down." Marcus didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. "Your boy beat a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. You bought his way out of consequences for 2 years. That ends today. You have no authority here. This is a school matter. This stopped being a school matter when you made it about money." Victor's face went red. "Do you know who I am? Do you know what I can do to you?" "I know exactly who you are." Marcus stepped closer. "You're a man who raised a bully, who taught his son that money buys immunity, who looked at 7 crying children and decided your checkbook mattered more than their pain." He stopped directly in front of Victor. "And I'm a man who's buried 14 brothers defending people like you. So don't threaten me, Mr. Hayes. You don't have enough money to scare me." The board president's gavel cracked against the table. "Order. We will have order." But there was no order, not anymore. A reporter pushed forward. "Principal Foster, can you confirm that your school received a $50,000 donation from Hayes Development 1 week before Maya Chen was attacked?" Foster's face went pale. Those are private matters. It's public record," the reporter pressed. "We pulled the 501c3 filings this morning. $50,000 transferred 7 days ago. Was that a coincidence?" No comment. "Did you know Brandon Hayes had a history of violence before the donation?" No comment. "Why wasn't Maya Chen's report taken seriously?" No comment. More reporters joined in. Cameras flashed. Microphones pushed forward. The carefully controlled meeting had become a feeding frenzy, and Principal Foster was the chum. Victor Hayes grabbed his son's arm and headed for the exit. Derek stepped into his path. "Move." "No." "I said move." Derek smiled. "Make me." For a long moment, no one breathed. 2 men facing each other, one in a $3,000 suit, one in a leather cut worth more than money could measure. Power versus principle. Wealth versus will. Victor blinked first. "This isn't over," he hissed. "You're right. It's not." Derek stepped aside just enough to let them pass. "But for the first time, you're not the one who gets to decide how it ends." Victor Hayes stormed out with his son. But everyone in that room knew the truth had already escaped. No amount of money could put it back. The school board voted at 10:47 a.m. Brandon Hayes expelled. Tyler Morrison expelled. Marcus Webb expelled. All 3 banned from school grounds pending completion of assault charges. Principal Margaret Foster placed on administrative leave effective immediately. Investigation pending into misuse of donation funds and failure to protect students. Zero tolerance policy enacted with teeth, mandatory reporting, third-party oversight, annual audits. The gavel fell. Maya sat perfectly still, processing what had just happened. Lucas squeezed her hand. "You won," he whispered. "We won," she whispered back. Helen pulled Maya into a hug so tight it hurt her ribs, but Maya didn't care. For the first time in 3 years, something had gone right. Someone had listened. Someone had believed her. She looked up at Derek, at Marcus, at the sea of leather and patches that had shown up for her. "Thank you," she said. The words felt too small. "Thank you for believing me." Marcus knelt down, his old knees protesting. "We didn't just believe you, little warrior. We believed in you. There's a difference." "What's the difference?" Believing someone means you think they're telling the truth. Believing in someone means you think they can change things. He tapped the patch in her pocket. You changed things today. Don't ever forget that. They walked out of the gymnasium at 11:15 a.m., 8:30 bikers, one grandmother and a little girl who'd started the morning feeling invisible and ended it feeling invincible. Cameras followed them, reporters shouted questions, but the wall of leather held keeping Maya and Helen safe in the center, untouchable. They reached the parking lot and Derek stopped. Maya, Helen, there's something else we need to talk about. Helen's smile faded. What is it? Derek looked at Marcus. Marcus nodded. One of our brothers did some digging last night, into Victor Hayes, into his business. Derek pulled out a folded document. Pinewood Trailer Park. Who owns it? Helen frowned. Hartley Property Management. They've owned it for years. Hartley Property Management is a shell company, registered 6 months ago. Derek unfolded the paper. The real owner is Hayes Development Corporation. Helen's face went white. What? Victor Hayes bought the trailer park in March. He's been planning to tear it down, build condos. Derek's jaw tightened. The eviction notices go out today. Eviction? Maya's voice was small. We're losing our home. He's not doing this because of the park. Helen's voice shook. He's doing this because of me, because I made a scene at the school, because I defended Maya. He's doing it because he's a coward, Derek said, and cowards punch down when they can't win fair. Helen sat down on a parking barrier, her legs suddenly unable to hold her. 72 years old, arthritic hands, a pension that barely covered groceries, and now no home. Where will we go? She whispered. We have nothing, no savings, no family, nothing. Maya knelt beside her grandmother, taking her hands. We'll figure it out, Grandma. We always do. Baby, this is different. Helen's voice broke. I can't protect you. I couldn't protect you from those boys, and I can't protect you from this. What kind of grandmother am I? The best kind. Maya's voice was fierce. The kind who took me in when no one else would. The kind who works 2 jobs so I can have food. The kind who holds me when I have nightmares. She squeezed Helen's hands. I don't care about the trailer. I care about you. Derek watched them, this grandmother and granddaughter, holding each other up the way his brothers held each other up. Family. The real kind forged by choice and love and sacrifice. He made a decision. You're not going anywhere. Helen looked up. What? Sarah and I have a spare room, 2 actually. You'll stay with us until we figure out something permanent. We can't impose. It's not an imposition. It's family taking care of family. Derek crouched beside them. Maya protected my son. That makes her my daughter's sister, whether either of them knows it yet. And you, Mrs. Chen, you raised a hero. That makes you worth protecting too. Helen's tears finally fell. 3 years of holding everything together, of being strong when she wanted to collapse, of smiling when she wanted to scream. It all came pouring out. Why? She managed. Why would you do this for us? Because someone did it for me once. Derek stood up, offering his hand. Because that's what we do. We show up. We protect. We don't walk away. Helen took his hand. Behind them, 830 bikers started their engines, ready to escort them to their new home. The eviction notice arrived at 2:47 p.m. Not to the trailer, they were already gone. It arrived at the Rawlings house, hand-delivered by a process server who looked deeply uncomfortable handing legal documents to a woman flanked by leather-clad bikers. Helen opened it with shaking hands. 48 hours. Her voice was hollow. We have 48 hours to vacate the premises or we'll be forcibly removed and our belongings will be seized. Sarah read over her shoulder. This is illegal. You can't evict someone in 48 hours without cause. The cause is listed right here, Helen pointed. Violation of lease terms, unauthorized modifications to property. She laughed bitterly. I hung a plant on the porch. That's the modification they're using. Maya stood in the corner of the kitchen listening. The victory from the morning felt far away now. The school board had voted in her favor. The bullies had been expelled. But Victor Hayes was still fighting, and he had weapons they couldn't match. Money, lawyers, power. All she had was a patch in her pocket and a grandmother who was running out of strength. Derek walked in, phone pressed to his ear. Yeah, I understand. Thanks, brother. He hung up. I called our lawyer. He's looking at the eviction notice now. Says it's shaky, might not hold up in court. Court takes time, Helen said. We don't have time. That's what Hayes is counting on. Derek's jaw tightened. He doesn't need to win legally. He just needs to break you before you can fight back. Then he's already won. Helen set the notice down. I'm 72 years old, Mr. Rawlings. I've been fighting my whole life. For my husband when he got sick. For my daughter when she struggled. For Maya when her parents died. I don't have any fight left. Grandma! Maya crossed the room and took her grandmother's hands. Don't say that. It's true, baby. I'm tired. So tired. Then let me fight. Maya's voice was stronger than she felt. Let the bikers fight. Let everyone fight. You don't have to do it alone anymore. Helen looked at her granddaughter, this small, bruised, unbreakable child who'd already given more than anyone should have to ask. When did you get so brave? I learned from you. Derek's phone buzzed again. He checked it, and something in his expression shifted. What? Sarah asked. Marcus just sent me a link. The story's gone national. He turned his phone around. The screen showed a news website, not local, not regional, but CNN. The headline read, Orphan girl beaten for protecting biker's son's school covered it up. Below it, a photo of Maya, her bruised face, her defiant eyes. The article had been shared 47,000 times in 3 hours. It's everywhere, Derek said. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Everyone's talking about Maya Chen. Helen stared at the screen. That's my granddaughter. That's America's granddaughter now. The donation started at 4:15 p.m. Someone had set up a GoFundMe they never found out who titled, Help Maya Chen and Her Grandmother. Within an hour it had raised $15,000. Within 2 hours, $50,000. By dinner time it had crossed $100,000 and showed no signs of slowing. Messages poured in from across the country. Maya's courage reminded me why I became a teacher. I'm donating my bonus. I was bullied as a kid. No one stood up for me. I'm standing up for Maya. My son watched the news tonight and asked if he could give his allowance. I matched him 10-1. From one grandmother to another, you raised a warrior. Let me help. Helen read the messages through her tears, each one a reminder that the world wasn't as cruel as it sometimes seemed. That somewhere out there strangers were choosing kindness over indifference. I don't understand, she kept saying. Why do they care? They don't know us. Maya sat beside her, reading over her shoulder. Because they're good people, Grandma, and good people help each other. Is that what you believed when you stepped in front of those boys? Maya thought about it. I believed Lucas needed help. I believed I could give it. That's faith, baby. Helen pulled her close. That's faith in humanity. At 7:32 p.m., Maya's story reached Washington. Senator Patricia Coleman had grown up in foster care. She'd been shuffled between homes, forgotten by systems that were supposed to protect her, invisible to adults who should have seen her. She'd clawed her way out through scholarships, determination, and a refusal to be defined by her circumstances. Now she sat in her office watching a bruised 8-year-old on her computer screen and saw herself. She picked up her phone and dialed. Derek Rawlings. This is Senator Patricia Coleman. I think we need to talk. The call lasted 47 minutes. When it ended, Derek walked back into the living room where Helen and Maya were watching a movie with Lucas and Sarah. He stood in the doorway for a moment, processing what had just happened. Derek. Sarah paused the movie. Who was on the phone? Senator Coleman. She saw Maya's story. He sat down heavily. She wants to introduce legislation. Mandatory reporting for school bullying. Criminal penalties for administrators who cover up violence. Federal oversight for districts that accept donations from parents of problem students. Helen's hand flew to her mouth. Legislation. She wants to call it Maya's Law. The room went silent. Maya looked at Derek with wide eyes. My name, Your name. Derek nodded. Because what you did, what happened to you, it happens to kids everywhere. And no one does anything because the system is broken. Senator Coleman thinks your story can fix it. But I didn't do anything special. I just tried to help. That's what makes it special, sweetheart. You didn't think about it. You didn't calculate. You just saw someone in trouble and decided to stand between them and pain. Derek leaned forward. Most people spend their whole lives never making that choice. You made it at 8 years old. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then, will it actually help, this law? It could help thousands of kids, maybe more. Then okay. Maya's chin lifted. If my name can do that, they can use it. Helen pulled her granddaughter close, overwhelmed by pride and fear and love so fierce it hurt. When did you grow up, baby girl? I think it was Thursday, Grandma, around 3:15. Despite everything, they all laughed. At 9:47 p.m., Victor Hayes made his move. A black SUV pulled up to the Rawlings house. Two men in suits got out, lawyers by the look of them, carrying briefcases and expressions of barely concealed disdain. Derek met them at the door. Can I help you? We represent Hayes Development Corporation. We're here to deliver a message. I'm listening. The lead lawyer, mid-50s, silver hair, the kind of tan you got from golf courses, smiled without warmth. Mr. Hayes is prepared to drop the eviction proceedings against Mrs. Chen. He's also prepared to make a substantial settlement offer, enough for Mrs. Chen to purchase a home outright and live comfortably for the rest of her life. Derek crossed his arms. And in exchange, Mrs. Chen signs a non-disclosure agreement, no media appearances, no cooperation with Senator Coleman's office, no testimony at any future proceedings. The lawyer paused. The girl gets a scholarship fund, private school if she wants it, college fully funded. And Maya also signs an NDA. The story goes away. Everyone moves on. Derek looked at the lawyers for a long moment. Two men in expensive suits offering money to bury the truth. It was probably more money than Helen had ever seen in her life, more security than Maya had ever known. He thought about the emails Marcus had found, the 7 victims before Maya, the system designed to protect bullies as long as their parents could pay. Wait here. He went inside. Helen and Maya were in the kitchen pretending they hadn't been listening. You heard? Helen nodded slowly. A house. College. Everything we've ever needed. What do you want to do? Helen looked at Maya. Maya looked back. 8 years old. Bruised face. Unbreakable spirit. Tell them no, Maya said. Helen's eyebrows rose. Baby, that's a lot of money. It could change our lives. Brandon Hayes hurt 7 kids before me. If we take the money, he'll hurt 7 more after. Maya's voice was steady. And Lucas. What if he does it to Lucas again? What if he does it to someone who can't get away? Maya. The senator wants to make a law with my name on it. A law that could protect thousands of kids. How can I let her do that if I'm not willing to speak up? Helen stared at her granddaughter. This child she'd raised from grief and loss. This warrior she'd watched emerge from pain. You'd give up all that money, the security for kids you'll never meet. Maya shrugged. Someone showed up for me. Maybe someday I'll show up for someone else. Helen turned to Derek. Her voice was thick with emotion she couldn't name. Tell them no. Derek smiled. Not the polite smile he gave strangers. The real one, the one that meant family. Yes, ma'am. He walked back to the porch where the lawyers waited. The answer is no. The lead lawyer's smile flickered. I don't think you understand the consequences of refusing. I understand perfectly. You're offering money to silence an 8-year-old who did what adults couldn't. You're trying to buy your way out of accountability. Again. Derek stepped closer. Tell your boss the answer is no. Tell him we're not for sale. And tell him that every day he drags this out, the story gets bigger, the pressure gets stronger, and his son's future gets darker. Mr. Hayes will not take this well. I'm counting on it. The lawyers left at 10:03 p.m. By 10:15, the GoFundMe had crossed $500,000. By midnight, Maya's Law had 3 Senate co-sponsors. And in a trailer at Pinewood Lot 14, empty, now a single potted plant sat on the porch, refusing to die. Victor Hayes didn't sleep that night. He stood at his office window looking out at the town he'd built the buildings with his name on them, the streets he'd paved with influence and carefully placed donations. For 23 years he'd controlled this place. The mayor owed him favors. The police chief played golf at his club. The school board danced when he pulled their strings, and now an 8-year-old girl was tearing it all down. His phone rang at 6:47 a.m. "Have you seen the news?" His lawyer's voice was strained. The national morning shows picked up the story. All of them. ABC, NBC, CBS. They're calling it the biggest bullying cover-up in a decade. Then make it go away. Victor, I can't make this go away. There's video. There are witnesses. There are 7 families who've been waiting years to talk. The dam has broken. Victor's hand tightened on the phone. What about the girl, the grandmother? They refused the settlement, every penny. Then offer more. I offered them enough to live like royalty. They said no. The lawyer paused. Victor, I need you to consider the possibility that this can't be fixed with money. Everything can be fixed with money. Not this, not anymore. Victor hung up and threw his phone across the room. It shattered against the wall, but the sound didn't make him feel better. Nothing would make him feel better until Maya Chen was silenced. The news vans arrived in town at 8:15 a.m. Not 1 or 2. 17. They lined Main Street like an occupying army satellite dishes pointed at the sky, reporters doing camera checks and adjusting their hair. A helicopter circled overhead. Someone had sent aerial coverage. Marcus Stone watched from the porch of the Rawlings house, coffee in hand, phone pressed to his ear. How many brothers are still in town? 412, came the reply. The rest had to get back, but they're on standby. 1 call and they ride. Good. Keep them ready. This isn't over. Derek joined him on the porch. Media's requesting interviews, all of them. They want Maya, Helen, you, me, everyone. What does Helen want? She's scared, hasn't slept. But Maya... Derek shook his head. That kid wants to fight. She's 8 years old. She's also the bravest person I've met in 40 years of living. Marcus nodded slowly. Then we let her fight. But we control the battlefield. No ambush interviews. No gotcha questions. We pick the time, the place, the format. And Victor Hayes, he'll make a move. Men like him always do. When their money fails, they get desperate. Marcus drained his coffee. Desperate men make mistakes. We just have to be ready when he makes his. Inside the house, Maya sat at the kitchen table eating cereal she couldn't taste. Helen watched her from across the room, worry etched into every line of her face. She'd aged 10 years in the last 48 hours. The stress was taking its toll. Her hands shook when she poured her coffee, and there was a tightness in her chest that wouldn't go away. You don't have to do this, baby. Maya looked up. Do what? The interviews, the cameras, any of it. Helen sat down across from her. We can leave. Go somewhere nobody knows us. Start over. And let Victor Hayes win. It's not about winning or losing. It's about keeping you safe. Maya put down her spoon. Her bruises had faded from purple to yellow, but they were still visible, still a reminder of what she'd endured. Grandma, do you remember what you told me when Mom and Dad died? Helen's eyes filled with tears. Baby, you said the world is hard, but we're harder. You said we don't run from things that scare us. We face them. You were 5 years old. I was trying to help you be brave. It worked. Maya reached across the table and took her grandmother's hand. I'm brave now, and I want to use it. Helen stared at her granddaughter. This child she'd raised from grief. This warrior she'd watched emerge from pain. When did you become the adult in this family? Thursday, around 3:15. Despite everything, Helen laughed. It came out watery, mixed with tears, but it was real. Okay, she said finally. We fight, but together. Always together. Always, Grandma. The first interview was scheduled for 10 a.m. A national morning show wanted Maya's story. They promised to be gentle, to let her tell it in her own words, to show the world what real courage looked like. Sarah helped Maya pick out clothes. Nothing fancy, just clean jeans and a purple sweater that made her feel strong. Helen brushed her hair and tried not to cry at how small she looked, how young she was to be carrying the weight of a nation's attention. Derek and Marcus flanked them as they walked outside. 400 bikers formed a corridor from the house to the interview location, their leather cuts creating a wall of protection that no camera could penetrate without permission. The reporter was a woman named Catherine Wells, mid-40s, known for tough but fair interviews. She knelt down to Maya's level before they started. "Maya, I want you to know something. You don't have to answer anything that makes you uncomfortable. If you need a break, we take a break. If you want to stop, we stop." "Okay." Maya nodded. "Okay. And one more thing." Catherine's voice softened. "What you did was incredibly brave. I have a daughter your age. I hope she grows up to be half as courageous as you." The interview began. Catherine started with the basics. What happened on the playground, how Maya felt when she saw Lucas being hurt, why she decided to step in. Maya answered simply, without drama, without embellishment. She told the truth because the truth was powerful enough. "I saw him on the ground. They were kicking him. He was so scared." Her voice was steady. "I knew I'd get hurt, but I couldn't just watch." "Were you scared?" "Yes." "But you did it anyway." "Being scared and doing nothing is just being scared. Being scared and doing something anyway is something else." Catherine paused. "What would you call it?" "I don't know. Maybe courage. Maybe just doing what's right." "And after, when the school tried to cover it up, when they protected the boys who hurt you?" Maya's jaw tightened. "That made me mad. Not for me, for the other kids." "What other kids?" "The 7 before me. The ones nobody helped. The ones who got hurt and nobody cared." Maya looked directly into the camera. "Brandon Hayes hurt 7 kids before me. Everyone knew. The teachers knew. The principal knew. And nobody did anything because his dad is rich." Catherine leaned forward. "You're saying the school systematically protected a bully because of his family's money?" "Yes. And you have proof. They have proof." Maya gestured toward Marcus and Derek. "Emails, witness statements, everything." The interview aired at noon. By 12:30, it had been viewed 3 million times online. By 1 p.m., 5 million. By 2 p.m., the hashtag Maya the Brave was trending alongside hashtag Justice for Maya, and a new one that made Helen cry, #Grandma Helen. The phone calls started coming in from everywhere. Other news shows wanting interviews. Podcasters wanting to tell her story. A movie producer asking about rights. But the call that mattered came at 2:47 p.m. Senator Patricia Coleman was on a plane to their town. "She's coming here." Helen couldn't believe it. A United States senator. "She wants to meet Maya in person," Derek explained. "She's holding a press conference tomorrow, announcing Maya's law officially. She wants Maya standing beside her when she does it." "Is that safe with Victor Hayes still?" "We'll have 200 brothers on security, plus her Secret Service detail." Derek's expression was serious. "Helen, this is bigger than Victor Hayes now. This is about changing the law, protecting kids everywhere." Maya started something that can't be stopped. Helen looked at Maya, who was sitting on the couch with Lucas, both of them drawing pictures on a shared sketch pad. "She's 8 years old," Helen whispered. "She's a force of nature." Victor Hayes watched the interview from his office. His face was stone, but his hands were shaking. The girl had said his son's name on national television. She'd talked about the cover-up. She'd mentioned the 7 other victims. His phone rang. He didn't recognize the number. "Mr. Hayes, this is Special Agent Morrison with the FBI. We'd like to ask you some questions about potential violations of federal bribery statutes." Victor hung up. It rang again immediately. Different number. "Mr. Hayes, this is Rebecca Torres from the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. We're conducting an audit of Hayes Development Corporation and its charitable donations." He hung up again. The phone kept ringing. Reporters, investigators, former business partners suddenly remembering conversations they'd had. The walls were closing in. He made one more call, the only one that mattered. "I need to see you, tonight. Bring everything." At 7 p.m., Victor Hayes met with his most trusted lawyer in a private room at the country club. Documents were spread across the table. Financial records, donation histories, a paper trail that led directly from his checkbook to Principal Foster's bank account. "How bad is it?" The lawyer, a man named Whitmore, who'd been protecting the Hayes family for 3 decades, didn't sugarcoat it. "Bad. The FBI is looking at bribery charges. The IRS is looking at tax fraud. Those donations weren't properly documented. The state attorney general is looking at conspiracy to obstruct justice for covering up assaults." He paused. "And that's just the criminal exposure. Civil suits from the 7 families could total tens of millions. Can we make it go away?" "Victor, you asked me that yesterday. And the day before. The answer keeps getting worse." Whitmore leaned forward. "You have 2 options. One, fight everything. Drag it out in court for years. Spend millions on legal fees. Maybe win, maybe lose, but definitely destroy your reputation and your business in the process. And option 2, cooperate, get ahead of the story, accept responsibility, make amends." Whitmore's voice dropped. "It's the only way to control the narrative." "Accept responsibility." Victor's laugh was bitter. "For what my son got in a schoolyard fight. Kids do that. Your son assaulted 8 children over 2 years while you paid people to look the other way. That's not a schoolyard fight. That's a pattern of criminal behavior enabled by corruption." Victor slammed his hand on the table. "I was protecting my family. You were protecting your ego. There's a difference." Silence. Heavy. Thick. Whitmore gathered his papers. "I've represented the Hayes family since your father's time. I've fixed a lot of problems for you. But I can't fix this one. Not unless you're willing to actually change. And if I'm not, then find another lawyer. Because I won't go down with a sinking ship." He walked out. Victor sat alone in the private room surrounded by the evidence of his crimes and finally understood that money couldn't save him this time. Senator Coleman arrived at 9 a.m. the next morning. Her motorcade pulled up to the town square where a stage had been set up for the press conference. Secret Service agents swept the perimeter while 400 bikers in leather cuts formed an additional ring of protection. Maya stood backstage with Helen, both of them nervous in ways they hadn't expected. "I don't know if I can do this, Grandma." Helen knelt down, taking Maya's hands. "Remember what I told you about being harder than the world?" "Yes. This is that moment, baby. The world is watching, and you get to show them what you're made of. What if I mess up? What if I say the wrong thing? Then you'll say the wrong thing and the world will love you anyway. Because you're real. Because you're honest. Because you're brave." Helen kissed her forehead. "I believe in you, Maya Chen. I've always believed in you." Senator Coleman approached them. She was 57 years old, silver-haired, with eyes that had seen hardship and come out stronger. "Maya, I'm Patricia. It's an honor to meet you." Maya shook her hand, trying to remember everything Sarah had taught her about being polite to important people. "Thank you for coming, ma'am." "Thank you for standing up." The senator crouched down to Maya's level. "I grew up in foster care. I know what it's like to feel invisible, to feel like the system doesn't care about kids like us." Her voice was thick with emotion. "What you did, what you're doing, it matters. Don't ever let anyone tell you it doesn't." Maya nodded. Something passed between them, a recognition, a solidarity, a shared understanding that some fights were worth everything. "Are you ready?" Maya took a deep breath. "Yes, ma'am." The press conference began at 10 a.m. 200 journalists, 50 cameras, a live feed broadcasting to every corner of the country. Senator Coleman stepped to the microphone. "Today, I'm announcing the introduction of the Protecting Our Children Act legislation that will fundamentally change how our schools respond to bullying and violence. This bill will mandate reporting, criminalize cover-ups, and ensure that no child ever has to suffer in silence again." She paused, turning toward Maya. This legislation will be known as Maya's Law, named for a brave 8-year-old girl who did what adults wouldn't, who stood between a bully and a child, who took a beating to protect a stranger, and who refused to be silenced when the system tried to bury the truth. Maya stepped forward. The cameras flashed. The crowd murmured. Here was this small girl, still showing faint traces of bruises, standing before the nation. She leaned into the microphone. My name is Maya Chen. 3 days ago, I saw a little boy being hurt. I tried to help him. 3 bigger kids beat me up instead. Her voice wavered but held. The school said I was lying. They said it was my fault. They protected the bullies because their families had money. She paused, swallowing hard. I'm not special. I'm not different. I'm just a kid who didn't want to see someone get hurt. But there are thousands of kids like me. Kids who stand up. Kids who get hurt. Kids who nobody believes. Her voice grew stronger. Maya's Law is for them, so no kid ever has to feel alone when they do the right thing. The crowd was silent. Then from somewhere in the back, applause. It spread like wildfire, clapping, cheering journalists for getting their professional detachment. Marcus Stone watched from the side, tears streaming down his weathered face. Derek stood beside him, one hand on Lucas's shoulder, the other wiping his eyes. Helen sobbed openly, clutching Sarah's arm, overwhelmed by pride and grief and hope, all tangled together. This moment, this child, this change, it was worth everything. The questions came fast after that. Maya, are you scared of Victor Hayes? Maya considered the question. He scares me, but being scared doesn't mean I have to stop. What do you want people to learn from your story? That helping someone isn't about being big or strong, it's about being willing. Do you have a message for other kids who are being bullied? Maya looked directly into the camera. You're not alone. You matter. And somewhere out there, someone will stand up for you. I promise. The press conference ended at 11:23 a.m. What happened next would change everything. Victor Hayes arrived at the town square at 11:47 a.m. No one had expected him. No one had invited him. But there he was, walking through the crowd, past the journalists, past the Secret Service, past the bikers who formed a wall, and then parted because this was a free country, and a man had a right to walk where he pleased. He stopped at the edge of the stage, looking up at Maya and Senator Coleman and the officials who had just announced his destruction. I want to speak. The crowd went silent. Marcus stepped forward. You have no right to be here. I have every right. This is my town, my son, my name being dragged through the mud. Victor's voice was calm, almost eerily so. I want to speak. Senator Coleman held up a hand, stopping her security detail. Let him talk. Senator, let him talk. The world is watching. Whatever he says will be on the record. Victor Hayes climbed the steps to the stage. He stood before the microphones, before the cameras, before the nation. And something unexpected happened. He broke. I've spent 23 years building this town, creating jobs, donating to schools, telling myself I was a good man. His voice cracked. But I wasn't. I was a man who used his money to protect his son from consequences. I was a man who let other children suffer so my child wouldn't have to be accountable. The crowd was frozen. This wasn't what anyone had expected. My son Brandon hurt 8 children. 8! And I knew about every one. Tears streamed down Victor's face. I paid to make it go away. I threatened families. I bribed officials. I told myself it was protection, but it was corruption. I corrupted my son. I corrupted this town. And I corrupted myself. He turned toward Maya. This little girl, this brave, incredible little girl, did what I should have done years ago. She stood up. She said no. She refused to let wrong keep happening. His voice broke completely. And I tried to destroy her for it. I tried to take her home. I tried to buy her silence. Because I was scared. Scared of losing everything I'd built. He fell to his knees. Maya Chen, I am so sorry. I am so deeply, profoundly sorry for what my son did to you, for what I did to you, for everything. The stage was silent. The crowd was silent. The whole world was silent. Maya looked at this man, this powerful, wealthy man who had tried to crush her, kneeling at her feet, weeping like a child. She walked toward him. Helen reached out to stop her, but Maya shook her head. She stood in front of Victor Hayes and spoke clearly into the microphone. "I don't forgive you." Victor flinched. "I don't forgive you because forgiveness isn't free. It has to be earned." Maya's voice was steady, wise beyond her years. "But I believe people can change. I believe you can change. And if you really want to be different, if you really want to fix what you broke, then start. Today. Right now." She extended her hand. "Get up, Mr. Hayes, and do better." Victor stared at her hand. Then slowly he took it. An 8-year-old girl helped a broken man to his feet. The cameras captured everything. The fallout was immediate. Victor Hayes surrendered to federal authorities at 3 p.m. that afternoon. He would eventually plead guilty to bribery and obstruction of justice, receiving 18 months in federal prison and a lifetime of community service. Brandon Hayes was enrolled in an intensive behavioral program. He would spend 2 years in therapy confronting the monster he'd become and learning to be something better. Principal Margaret Foster resigned before she could be fired. The State Board of Education revoked her credentials permanently. The 7 families who had been silenced received settlements from the Hayes estate, along with public apologies that Victor insisted on delivering personally to each one. And Maya's law. It passed the Senate 14 days later. Unanimous. The House followed within a month. The president signed it into law with Maya standing beside him, her grandmother on one side, Lucas on the other, and 830 bikers watching from the south lawn of the White House. But all of that came later. In the immediate aftermath of the press conference, Maya sat on the stage steps, exhausted and overwhelmed, watching the crowd disperse. Lucas sat beside her, their shoulders touching. "Maya, yeah, are we still best friends?" She looked at him, this little boy she'd bled for, this stranger who'd become family. "We're more than best friends, Lucas." "What are we?" Maya thought about it, about everything she'd lost, about everything she'd found, about the strange, beautiful family that had formed around her in the worst week of her life. "We're siblings." Lucas's face lit up. "Really? Really? I protected you. That makes you my brother. Forever." Lucas threw his arms around her. Maya hugged him back, ignoring the ache in her ribs, focusing only on the warmth. Across the square, Helen watched them, tears streaming down her face. Sarah stood beside her, one arm around the older woman's shoulders. "She's going to be okay," Sarah said softly. "I know." Helen's voice was thick with emotion. "I've always known. That girl has more strength in her little finger than I have in my whole body." "She learned it from you." "No." Helen shook her head. "She taught it to me." Derek and Marcus approached both men, visibly moved by what they'd witnessed. "Mrs. Chen," Marcus said formally, "I want you to know something." "What's that?" "Maya is one of us now, officially. Honorary Steel Guardian." He handed Helen a folded document. "This is a scholarship in her name. Full ride to any college she wants whenever she's ready. Funded by the club." Helen's hands shook as she took the paper. "I can't accept this." "You're not accepting it. Maya earned it." Marcus's voice was firm but kind. "She showed us what courage looks like. The least we can do is show her what family looks like." Helen looked at the document, then at Maya and Lucas still hugging on the stage steps, then at the bikers who had shown up from 12 states for a child they'd never met. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for seeing her. Hard not to see someone who burns that bright." The sun set on the town square at 7:32 p.m. Maya, Helen, Derek, Sarah, Lucas, Marcus, and 400 bikers gathered for a final moment before the out-of-state brothers began their journeys home. Marcus raised a bottle of root beer, the only thing Maya was allowed to toast with. "To Maya Chen, the bravest person I've ever met. To Maya." 400 voices echoed. Maya blushed but raised her own bottle. "To family," she said quietly. "The kind you find when you're not looking." Bottles clinked. Laughter rose. and somewhere in the distance a motorcycle engine rumbled to life, followed by another and another and another. The Steel Guardians were going home, but Maya Chen had already found hers. The days that followed blurred together like watercolors in the rain. Maya woke each morning in the Rawlings guest room, disoriented for a moment before remembering where she was. The bed was softer than anything she'd ever slept on. The sheets smelled like lavender. There was a window that didn't rattle when trucks passed. It felt like a dream she was afraid to trust. Helen slept in the room next door, though slept was generous. Maya heard her grandmother pacing at night, heard her coughing, heard the worry that wouldn't let her rest. 3 years of stress, of barely surviving, of holding everything together with nothing but determination. It was catching up to her. The GoFundMe had crossed $2 million. The number was abstract, unreal. Maya didn't understand what $2 million meant. She only knew that her grandmother still couldn't sleep, still flinched at every knock on the door, still expected the other shoe to drop, because it always had. For people like them, good things didn't last. On the 4th morning after the press conference, Helen didn't come to breakfast. Maya found her on the bedroom floor, unconscious, her skin gray, her breathing shallow. "Grandma!" Maya dropped to her knees, shaking her. "Grandma, wake up. Please wake up." Sarah came running at Maya's screams. One look at Helen and she was on the phone, her voice sharp and controlled. "We need an ambulance at 147 Oak Street. Elderly woman unresponsive, possible cardiac event. Hurry." Maya clutched her grandmother's hand, tears streaming down her face. "Don't leave me, Grandma. Please don't leave me. You're all I have. Please." Helen's eyes fluttered. Her lips moved, forming words Maya couldn't hear. "What, Grandma? What are you saying?" Helen's voice came out as a whisper, weak, fading. "My brave girl." "I'm here, Grandma. I'm right here. Don't go. Please don't go." The ambulance arrived in 7 minutes. The paramedics worked quickly, efficiently, checking vitals and starting an IV, while Maya watched from the corner, Sarah's arms wrapped around her, Lucas pressed against her side. "Is she going to die?" Maya's voice was hollow, empty. "Like Mom and Dad." Sarah held her tighter. "She's going to be okay, sweetheart. Helen is strong." "Everyone says that. Everyone said my parents were strong too." The paramedics loaded Helen onto the stretcher. Maya tried to follow, but they stopped her. "Family only in the ambulance. I am family. She's my grandmother. She's all I have." Derek stepped forward, badge in hand. Not a real badge, but something official enough to matter. "I'm her legal representative. The child comes with us." The paramedic hesitated, then nodded. Maya climbed into the ambulance and took Helen's hand. She didn't let go for the entire ride. The hospital was a maze of white walls and beeping machines. Maya sat in the waiting room, still in her pajamas, Lucas beside her, Derek pacing by the window. Sarah had stayed home to handle the media calls that wouldn't stop coming, interview requests, update requests, people wanting to know about Helen, about Maya, about everything. 2 hours passed. 3, 4. Finally, a doctor emerged. Middle-aged, tired eyes, a clipboard clutched in his hands. "Family of Helen Chen." Maya jumped up. "That's me. I'm her granddaughter." The doctor looked at Derek, who nodded. "Your grandmother is stable. She had a severe stress reaction, exhaustion, dehydration, and a minor cardiac arrhythmia. Nothing life-threatening, but she needs rest. Complete rest. Her body is telling her she's been running on empty for too long." "Can I see her?" "In a few minutes. She's asking for you." The doctor paused, his expression softening. "You're Maya, right? The girl from the news?" Maya nodded, not sure where this was going. "My daughter was bullied in 5th grade. Nobody did anything. She still has nightmares." His voice thickened. "What you did, what you're doing, it matters. Thank you." Maya didn't know what to say. She nodded again, and the doctor led her down the hall. Helen looked small in the hospital bed. The machines beeped steadily. An IV dripped clear fluid into her arm. Her eyes were closed, her face pale, her hands folded on her chest like she was already practicing for the end. Maya climbed into the chair beside the bed and took her grandmother's hand. "Grandma." Helen's eyes opened, tired, but alive. "My brave girl. You scared me." "I scared myself." Helen's laugh was weak, barely there. 72 years old, and I still don't know when to stop fighting. The doctor says you need to rest. The doctor doesn't know what we've been through. Grandma, Maya's voice broke. Please, I can't lose you too. You're all I have left. Helen's eyes filled with tears. She squeezed Maya's hand with what little strength she had. You're not going to lose me, baby. I'm too stubborn to die. Promise. Promise. They sat in silence, hands intertwined, listening to the beep of the heart monitor that proved Helen was still there. Maya. Yeah. I'm proud of you. Your mother would be so proud. Your father would be so proud. Helen's voice trembled. You took everything we lost and turned it into something beautiful. You made our pain matter. Maya's tears fell onto their joined hands. I just wanted to help Lucas. And you changed the world. I didn't mean to. The best changes never start that way. Helen closed her eyes. Rest now, baby. I'm not going anywhere. Maya laid her head on the edge of the bed and let exhaustion take her. She didn't know it yet, but things were about to get worse. Victor Hayes was released on bail at 4:17 p.m. $2 million pocket change for a man who'd built an empire. He walked out of the federal courthouse with his lawyers flanking him, ducking cameras, refusing to answer questions. But something in him had changed. The breakdown at the press conference had been real. The tears, the apology, the moment of genuine accountability, all of it. For the first time in 53 years, Victor Hayes had confronted who he really was, and he hated what he saw. His first call wasn't to his lawyers or his accountants or his PR team. It was to his son. Brandon answered on the second ring. Dad, I need to see you. Tonight. It's important. Are you okay? I saw the news. I'm not okay. I haven't been okay for a long time. Victor's voice was raw, stripped of the confidence he'd worn like armor. And I need to talk to you about that. They met at the house, the mansion, really 10,000 square feet of wealth that suddenly felt empty. Brandon was already there when Victor arrived, sitting in the living room that cost more than most people's homes. He looked different, smaller somehow, less like the bully he'd become and more like the child he'd once been. Dad, what's going on? Victor sat down across from his son. For a long moment, he didn't speak. He just looked at this boy he'd raised, this monster he'd created, and felt the weight of every mistake he'd ever made. I failed you, Brandon. Brandon blinked. What? I failed you. As a father, as a man, as a human being. Victor's voice cracked. I taught you that money made you untouchable. I taught you that power meant never having to be accountable. I taught you that other people's pain didn't matter as long as you got what you wanted. Dad, let me finish. Victor held up a hand. I taught you those things because that's what I believed. That's how I lived. And I was wrong. I was so wrong. Brandon was quiet. His father had never spoken to him like this. Had never admitted fault, never shown weakness, never acknowledged that anything he did might be less than perfect. The girl. Maya Chen. Victor's voice was barely a whisper. She's 8 years old. 8. And she has more integrity, more courage, more basic human decency than I've ever had in my entire life. I know. She stood up for a little boy she didn't even know. Took a beating for him, and I tried to destroy her for it. I tried to take her home, silence her voice, bury her truth. Victor's tears fell freely. What kind of man does that? Brandon didn't answer. Couldn't answer. I'm going to prison, son. 18 months, maybe more, and I deserve every day of it. Victor leaned forward. But you still have a chance. You're 13. You can change. You can become someone different, someone better. How? Brandon's voice cracked. Everyone hates me. Everyone knows what I did. Maya's face was on every TV screen in the country. They all saw the bruises. They all know I put them there. Then make them see something else. What redemption? Victor gripped his son's shoulders. It's not enough to say sorry, Brandon. You have to live sorry. You have to become the kind of person who would never do what you did. And then you have to spend the rest of your life proving it. Brandon stared at his father, this broken man, this humble giant, this stranger who looked like his dad, but spoke like someone new. I don't know if I can. Neither do I. But I know you have to try. Victor pulled his son into a hug, awkward, unfamiliar, the first real embrace they'd shared in years. We both do. They held each other in the empty mansion, father and son, beginning the long road back to humanity. Maya woke to a knock on the hospital door. She was still in the chair beside Helen's bed, her neck stiff, her back aching. Helen was awake, propped up on pillows, looking better than she had that morning. Derek stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. You have a visitor. Maya sat up confused. Who? Derek stepped aside. Brandon Hayes walked in. Maya's heart stopped. Her body went rigid. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, to get away from the boy who had hurt her. But she didn't move. Brandon stopped just inside the door. He looked smaller than she remembered. Younger, less like a monster, and more like a scared kid wearing a monster's skin. I'm sorry. His voice cracked. I know that's not enough. I know words don't fix what I did. But I'm sorry. Maya didn't respond. She just watched him waiting. I hurt you. I hurt Lucas. I hurt 7 other kids before you. And I never thought about what it meant. I never cared about the pain I caused because nobody ever made me care. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. This is a list. Every kid I ever hurt. I'm going to apologize to all of them. In person. I'm going to look them in the eye and tell them what I did was wrong. Maya took the paper. 8 names. 8 victims. 8 lives she'd been brave enough to speak for. Why now? Her voice was quiet but steady. Why do you suddenly care? Because of you. Brandon's eyes filled with tears. Because you stood up. Because you didn't stay quiet. Because you made me see what I really was. He wiped his face roughly. I was a coward. A bully. A monster. And I didn't even know it because nobody ever stopped me. I didn't stop you. I just got in the way. Same thing. Brandon looked at Helen at the machines at the hospital bed. Is she going to be okay? The doctor says she needs rest. Because of me. Because of what I started. Maya considered this. The chain of events, Brandon's cruelty, her courage, the school's corruption, the bikers' response, the national attention, the stress that had broken her grandmother's health. It wasn't just you, she said finally. It was everyone who let you get away with it. Adults who should have known better. A system that protects bullies when they're rich. My dad, Brandon's voice was hollow. He taught me that money meant I could do whatever I wanted. Was he wrong? I thought he wasn't. Now I know he was. Brandon took a shaky breath. He's going to prison. For what he did. For covering up what I did. Maya didn't feel the satisfaction she thought she would. She just felt tired. What are you going to do? Change. The word came out like a vow. I'm going to a different school, a place for kids who need help. Therapy every day. Community service every weekend. And when I turn 18, I'm going to start a foundation. For victims of bullying. To help kids like the ones I hurt. Will it be enough? No. Brandon shook his head. Nothing will ever be enough. But it's a start. He turned to leave, then stopped. Maya. What you did, standing up for Lucas when nobody else would, that was the bravest thing I've ever seen. I spent my whole life thinking I was strong because I could hurt people, but you're strong because you protect them. He paused. That's real strength. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to understand it. He walked out. Maya sat in the silence, processing what had just happened. Helen reached over and took her hand. That was hard for him. I know. It was hard for you too. Maya nodded. The tears came before she could stop them. I wanted to hate him forever, Grandma. I wanted him to suffer like I suffered, like Lucas suffered, like all those other kids suffered. And now I just want him to get better. Maya wiped her eyes. Is that wrong? No, baby. Helen squeezed her hand. That's called growing up. The GoFundMe crossed $3 million that night. Messages continued to pour in, not just money, but stories, thousands of them. Parents thanking Maya for giving them hope. Kids saying they finally felt brave enough to speak up. Teachers promising to do better. Administrators vowing to change. Maya read them all, every single one. And slowly the weight of what she'd started began to feel less like a burden and more like a gift. Derek visited the hospital room the next morning with news. Victor Hayes' legal team is dissolving Hayes Development Corporation. They're liquidating all assets and creating a victims fund. Helen sat up straighter. What does that mean? It means Pinewood Trailer Park isn't being sold. It's being donated to a housing nonprofit. Every resident gets to stay rent-free for the next 5 years, while permanent affordable housing is built. Helen's hand flew to her mouth. We get to keep our home. Better than that. Derek pulled out a document. Victor Hayes personally funded the construction of a new community center. It's going to be named the Maya Chen Youth Center. After school programs, tutoring, counseling, everything kids in that neighborhood never had access to. Maya stared at him. He did that, Victor Hayes. He did. Called it the first step in a very long journey. Derek sat down on the edge of the bed. People can change, Maya. Not all of them. Not always. But sometimes when they're forced to face what they've done, they find something better inside themselves. Do you believe him? I believe actions more than words, and his actions are speaking pretty loud right now. That afternoon, Lucas came to visit with his parents. He ran into the room and climbed onto the bed, hugging Helen so tight she laughed, despite her exhaustion. You're going to be okay, Grandma Helen. Helen blinked at the title. Grandma Helen. That's what I call you now, because Maya's my sister and you're her grandma, so you're my grandma too. Lucas said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Right. Helen's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Derek and Sarah, who were both smiling. We talked about it as a family, Sarah said. Lucas wants Maya to be his sister, officially. Officially? Maya's voice caught. What does that mean? Derek stepped forward. It means we want to become your legal guardians, you and Helen both. Not to replace your family, we could never do that. But to add to it, to make sure you always have a home, always have support, always have people in your corner. Maya couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she was hearing. You want to adopt me? We want to choose you. Sarah knelt beside the bed, taking Maya's hand. The same way you chose to protect Lucas. The same way Lucas chose you as his sister. Family isn't just blood, Maya. It's the people who show up, and we want to show up for you, forever. Maya looked at Helen. Grandma? Helen was crying openly now. I'm not going anywhere, baby. This isn't about replacing me. It's about having more people who love you. But you deserve this, Maya. You deserve a family that can give you things I can't. A mother and father who can run after you, play with you, take you to soccer practice, and help with homework. Helen's voice broke. I'll still be your grandmother. I'll still be here. But now you'll have parents too. Maya's walls crumbled. For 3 years she'd held herself together. Through her parents' death. Through the funeral. Through the grief that never fully went away. She'd been strong because she had to be brave, because there was no other choice unbreakable, because breaking wasn't an option. Now surrounded by people who loved her, who chose her, who would never let her fall, she finally let herself break. The sobs came from somewhere deep inside her, years of pain and loss and loneliness pouring out all at once. Sarah held her. Derek wrapped his arms around both of them. Lucas squeezed in somehow, his small body warm against hers. Helen reached out from the bed, her hand on Maya's back. They held her while she cried. And for the first time since her parents died, Maya Chen didn't feel alone. The legal paperwork began 3 days later. It would take months to finalize background checks, home studies, court appearances. But the wheels were in motion. Maya Chen would officially become Maya Chen Rawlings. Helen was released from the hospital on a Tuesday. Derek drove them to Pinewood Trailer Park not to pack up, but to see what was being built. Construction crews were already working, installing new plumbing, replacing roofs, transforming the neglected lot into something beautiful. "This is really happening," Helen whispered, looking at the changes. After everything, Derek agreed. "You survived, Helen, both of you, and now you get to thrive." Maya walked through the park past neighbors who waved and smiled, past kids who shouted her name like she was a hero. She stopped at Lot 14, their lot, and looked at the trailer she'd called home for 3 years. The potted plant was still on the porch, still alive, still refusing to give up, just like her. "Maya!" Lucas came running up behind her, something clutched in his hand. "I made you something." He thrust a piece of paper at her, a drawing done in crayon with the intensity only a 6-year-old could manage. 2 stick figures, one bigger, one smaller. The bigger one had brown hair and was standing in front of the smaller one, arms outstretched. Above them in wobbly letters were the words, "My sister, the hero." Maya's vision blurred. "Do you like it?" Lucas asked nervously. "I worked really hard on it." Maya dropped to her knees and pulled him into a hug so tight he squeaked. "I love it," she whispered. "I love it more than anything. More than ice cream. Way more than ice cream. More than pizza. Even more than pizza." Lucas pulled back, grinning. "Whoa, that's a lot." "It's because you're my brother." Maya held the drawing to her chest. "And this is the best present anyone's ever given me." They walked back to the car together, hand in hand, brother and sister, in everything that mattered. Helen watched them from the porch of Lot 14, tears streaming down her face. Derek stood beside her. "You okay?" "No." Helen shook her head. "I'm not okay. I'm better than okay. I don't have a word for what I am. Happy. Is that what this feeling is?" Helen laughed through her tears. "I'd almost forgotten." "You're going to have a lot of time to remember." Derek offered his arm. "Come on. Sarah's making dinner, and Maya wants to show you her new room." "Her new room?" "At our house. We set it up yesterday. Purple walls, her favorite color. And a bookshelf for all the books she said she wanted but could never afford." Helen took his arm, leaning on him as they walked toward the car. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why did you do all this for us?" Derek was quiet for a moment. Then, "Because 20 years ago I was a scared kid with nothing. And someone showed up for me, changed my whole life with one act of kindness." He helped Helen into the car. "Now I get to be that person for someone else. That's not just generosity, Helen. That's purpose." They drove away from Pinewood Trailer Park as the sun set behind them. Maya sat in the back seat with Lucas, both of them looking at his drawing, planning where to hang it in her new room. Helen sat in the front, watching the town pass by, the buildings, the streets, the people who had ignored them for years and now waved like old friends. Everything had changed. Everything was different. And for the first time in 3 years, Maya Chen wasn't afraid of tomorrow. That night, she fell asleep in a bed that was hers, in a room that was hers, in a house full of people who loved her. And she dreamed of her parents, not the funeral, not the loss, not the grief that had defined her for so long. She dreamed of them smiling. She dreamed of them proud. She dreamed of them saying, "Well done, baby girl, well done." 6 months passed like water through open fingers. Maya turned 9 on a Saturday in April, surrounded by more people than she'd ever imagined would know her name. The backyard of the Rawlings house was filled with bikers in leather cuts, neighbors who'd become friends, and children from schools across the state who'd traveled hours just to meet her. Lucas had insisted on planning the entire party himself. It has to be perfect, he'd told Sarah 3 weeks before. She never had a real birthday party. Not since her parents died. So this one has to count for all the ones she missed. He was 7 now, a year older, a year wiser still, the little boy Maya had bled for on that playground. The bond between them had only grown stronger. They walked to school together, ate dinner together, fought over the remote like siblings do, because that's what they were. Siblings, officially. The adoption had finalized 2 months ago. Maya Chen Rawlings. The name still felt new on her tongue, still made her heart skip when she saw it written on official documents. She hadn't lost her parents' name. She'd just added to it, grown her family instead of replacing it. Helen had cried at the courthouse. Happy tears, she insisted, though Maya caught her looking at photos of Maya's parents late at night, whispering apologies they couldn't hear. I didn't fail them, Helen said one evening when Maya found her in the kitchen at midnight. I was so afraid I had, that losing you to another family meant I'd broken my promise to keep you safe. Maya had sat beside her, taking her grandmother's weathered hand. You didn't lose me, Grandma. You gave me more. More what? More family, more love, more people to catch me if I fall. Maya had squeezed her hand. Mom and Dad would be happy. They'd want this for me. For us. Helen had pulled her close and held her until the sun came up. Now standing in the backyard with a crown of flowers on her head and frosting on her fingers, Maya watched the party unfold around her. Marcus Stone was teaching a group of kids how to properly shake hands, firm grip, eye contact, the whole formal routine that made them giggle and try again. Derek was manning the grill, arguing with 3 other bikers about the correct way to cook a burger, each of them absolutely certain they were right. Sarah was organizing games, her voice carrying across the yard, keeping 30 excited children from descending into chaos. And Lucas was by Maya's side, where he always was holding a plate piled high with cake he had no intention of sharing. This is the best birthday ever, Maya said. Lucas looked at her. Better than the ones with your mom and dad. Most kids would have avoided the question. Lucas never did. He asked what he wanted to know, said what he meant. Trusted Maya to handle the truth. Different, Maya said after a moment. Not better or worse, just different. Like, she searched for the right words. Like a new chapter in a book. You don't forget the earlier chapters just because you're reading new ones. That's really smart. I read it somewhere. Still smart that you remembered it. Maya laughed and stole a bite of his cake. He protested, but not very hard. The party lasted until sunset. As the last guest left and the cleanup began, Maya slipped away to the front porch. She needed a moment alone, not because she was sad, but because happiness this big sometimes needed space to breathe. Derek found her there 20 minutes later. Room for one more. Maya scooted over, and he sat beside her, his leather cut creaking as he settled. Good birthday. The best. She paused. I never thanked you properly. For what? Everything. Showing up that first day. Bringing the brothers. Taking us in. Adopting me. Her voice wavered. You didn't have to do any of it. You're right, I didn't have to. Derek looked at her, really looked the way he had that first night in her tiny bedroom in Lot 14. I wanted to. There's a difference. Why? Because you reminded me of something I'd forgotten. What? That courage isn't about being big or strong or powerful. It's about doing what's right even when it costs you everything. He put an arm around her shoulders. You taught me that, Maya. You taught all of us. Maya leaned into him, this man who had become her father in every way that mattered. Dad. Derek's breath caught. It was the first time she'd called him that. Ever. Yeah. Thank you for choosing me. His arm tightened around her. Thank you for letting me. They sat on the porch until the stars came out, father and daughter, watching the world they'd changed together. The Maya Chen Youth Center opened 3 weeks later. It was everything Victor Hayes had promised and more. A beautiful building in the heart of Pinewood filled with books and computers and spaces for kids to learn and grow and dream. After-school programs, tutoring, counseling, art classes and music lessons, and everything Maya had never had access to when she was struggling to survive. The ribbon-cutting ceremony drew national attention. Senator Coleman flew in for the event, her face beaming as she stood beside Maya on the steps of the center. 1 year ago, the senator said into the microphone, an 8-year-old girl did something extraordinary. She stood between a bully and a child she didn't know. She took a beating to protect a stranger. And when the system tried to silence her, she spoke louder. Yay. The crowd, hundreds of people, bikers and families and children from across the state cheered. Maya's law has now been adopted in 37 states. Over 12,000 children have received support through programs inspired by her story. And today, we open this center, a place where courage is celebrated, where kindness is taught, and where every child knows they matter. Senator Coleman turned to Maya. Would you like to say something? Maya stepped to the microphone. She was 9 years old, small for her age, still the same girl who'd preferred invisibility to attention. But something had changed. She'd found her voice, and she wasn't afraid to use it. A year ago, I was nobody. I lived in a trailer with my grandma. I wore clothes from thrift stores. I ate rice for dinner 3 nights a week because that's all we could afford. Her voice was steady, strong. I didn't think I mattered. I didn't think anyone would notice if I disappeared. The crowd was silent, listening. Then I saw a little boy being hurt, and something inside me said I had to help. I didn't think about what would happen to me. I just knew I couldn't watch someone suffer and do nothing. She looked out at the faces, young and old, all of them watching her, like she held answers to questions they hadn't known to ask. I'm not special. I'm not different. I'm just a kid who made a choice, and that choice changed everything. She paused. But here's what I learned: it wasn't just my choice. It was all the people who showed up after. The bikers who rode through the night. The families who spoke up. The senator who wrote a law. The strangers who donated money and sent messages and refused to let my story disappear. Her voice rose. That's what courage really is. It's not one person standing alone. It's a whole bunch of people deciding to stand together. It's knowing that when you do the right thing, someone will have your back. She gestured at the center behind her. This place exists because people stood together, and as long as it's here, no kid in this neighborhood will ever have to feel as alone as I did. The applause was deafening. Maya stepped back, overwhelmed, and found herself wrapped in Helen's arms. Your parents are watching, baby. Helen's voice was thick with tears. And they are so proud. Brandon Hayes arrived at 2:47 p.m. No one had expected him. The invitation had been sent as a formality, a gesture of the reconciliation that Maya's law was supposed to represent. No one thought he'd actually come. But there he was, walking through the crowd, taller now at 14, his face a mixture of determination and terror. The crowd parted around him. Whispers followed. Parents pulled their children closer. The bikers' hands moved toward weapons they didn't actually carry. Maya watched him approach. Derek stepped forward, blocking the path. What are you doing here? I came to apologize. Brandon's voice cracked. Not just to Maya, to everyone. You think an apology fixes what you did? No. Brandon shook his head. Nothing fixes it. I know that, but I have to try anyway. Marcus Stone appeared beside Derek. 2 men in leather forming a wall between the boy and the crowd. You've got 30 seconds, Marcus said. Brandon swallowed hard. Then he turned to face the crowd, the families he'd hurt, the community. He'd terrorized the children whose nightmares still featured his face. My name is Brandon Hayes. A year ago, I was a bully. A monster. I hurt 8 kids and never faced any consequences because my dad's money protected me. His voice shook, but didn't stop. I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here to tell you I was wrong. I was cruel. And I'm spending the rest of my life trying to be better. Silence. Heavy and judgmental. I've been in therapy for 11 months. I volunteer at an abuse prevention center every weekend. I talk to kids about what I did, about why it was wrong, about how to recognize when you're becoming someone you shouldn't be. Tears streamed down his face. I can't undo the pain I caused, but I can try to prevent other kids from causing the same pain. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. This is a check. Every dollar I've earned in the last year. Lawn mowing, tutoring, whatever I could find. It's not much, just over $2,000, but I want it to go to the center, to help kids like the ones I hurt. He held the envelope out toward Maya. The crowd held its breath. Maya looked at the envelope, at Brandon's tear-streaked face, at the trembling hand that had once struck her over and over. She took the envelope. "Thank you," she said quietly. "This matters." Brandon's legs nearly gave out. Really? Redemption isn't a destination. It's a direction. Maya met his eyes. "You're walking the right way. Keep going." She extended her hand. Brandon stared at it for a long moment. Then slowly he shook it. The crowd erupted not in applause but in something more complicated. A mixture of shock and grudging respect, and the uncomfortable recognition that forgiveness was harder than anger, but infinitely more powerful. That evening, as the sun set over the Maya Chen Youth Center, Maya found herself alone with her grandmother in the reading room. Helen was sitting in a comfortable chair, a book open in her lap, looking healthier than she had in years. The stress lines had faded. The tremor in her hands had calmed. Living with the Rawlings, surrounded by support and love, had given her something she'd been missing for 3 years' rest. "Grandma?" Helen looked up. "Yes, baby." Maya sat on the floor beside her chair, head resting against her grandmother's knee, the way she used to when she was small. "Do you think Mom and Dad would recognize me now?" Helen's hand found Maya's hair, stroking gently. "What do you mean? I'm different, from who I was before they died, before everything happened." Maya's voice was quiet. "Would they still know me?" Helen was silent for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "Your mother once told me something. When you were born." Her voice was thick with memory. She said, "Mom, this baby has fire in her eyes. She's going to change the world someday." Maya's breath caught. "I didn't understand what she meant until this year. Until I watched you stand up, speak out, refuse to be silenced. Until I saw you take all that pain and turn it into purpose." Helen's hand stilled on Maya's hair. "You're exactly who your parents knew you'd become. The fire was always there. It just needed something to burn for." Maya's tears fell silently, soaking into her grandmother's knee. "I miss them, Grandma." "I know, baby. I miss them too." "Will it ever stop hurting?" "No." Helen's voice was gentle but honest. "But it changes. It becomes less of a wound and more of a scar. Still, there's still part of you, but no longer bleeding. Just a reminder of what you survived." They sat together in the quiet, grandmother and granddaughter, connected by love and loss, and the unbreakable bonds that form when people choose to hold on to each other. 1 year later, Maya Chen Rawlings stood on the steps of the United States Capitol. She was 10 years old, still small for her age, still the same girl who preferred drawing in her notebook to drawing attention. But she'd learned something in the 2 years since that afternoon on the playground. Her voice mattered. Her story mattered. She mattered. President Williams had invited her personally to witness the signing of the expanded Maya's Law federal legislation that would protect children in every state, guarantee resources for victims of bullying, and ensure that no school could ever cover up violence the way Westbrook Elementary had. The Rose Garden was filled with dignitaries, reporters, families who'd traveled from across the country to witness this moment. Derek and Sarah stood to Maya's left. Helen sat in a wheelchair to her right. Her health was good, but 2 years of stress had taken a permanent toll. Lucas was somewhere behind her, probably driving a Secret Service agent crazy with questions. The president approached the podium. 2 years ago, an 8-year-old girl did something that changed this nation. She stood between a bully and a 6-year-old boy she didn't know. She took a beating to protect a stranger, and when the adults who should have protected her failed, she spoke up. The crowd was silent, reverent. Maya Chen didn't have power. She didn't have money. She didn't have connections or influence or any of the things we usually think of as strength. All she had was courage, the kind of courage that sees wrong and refuses to look away. He turned toward her. "Maya, would you join me?" She walked to the podium on legs that felt like water. The president put a hand on her shoulder. This law bears your name. It exists because you were brave. And today, as I sign it, I want you to know that you've done something most adults never do. You've made the world better simply by being who you are. He signed the document with a flourish. The crowd erupted in applause. Maya looked out at the faces, the reporters, the politicians, the families, the bikers who'd flown in from 12 states. She looked at Derek and Sarah, who were holding each other and crying. She looked at Helen, whose face was shining with pride. She looked at Lucas, who was jumping up and down shouting her name. And she felt something shift inside her. A settling. A completion. This was what she was meant for. Not the fame or the attention or the laws with her name on them, but this being a voice for the voiceless, standing up for those who couldn't stand for themselves. Carrying the torch that her parents had lit when they named her Maya, a name that meant illusion in some languages and brave in others. She'd spent years feeling like an illusion, invisible, forgettable. Now she knew the truth. She'd been brave all along. She'd just needed the right moment to prove it. The ceremony ended at 4:47 p.m. Maya was ushered through a maze of handshakes and photographs, each face blurring into the next. Senators wanting selfies, representatives promising support, reporters shouting questions she didn't have time to answer. Finally, Derek extracted her from the chaos and led her to a quiet corner of the rose garden. "You okay?" Maya nodded, overwhelmed. "Is it always like this? Only when you change the world?" Derek smiled. "You handled it like a pro. I felt like I was going to throw up the whole time. That's called being human." He put a hand on her shoulder. "Your parents would be so proud of you, Maya. I know I say that a lot, but it's true. What you've done, what you're still doing, it matters." "I know." And she did. Finally, after 2 years of doubt and grief and wondering if any of it meant anything, she knew. "I just wish they could see it. Maybe they can." Derek looked up at the sky, blue and endless. "I like to think the people we lose don't really leave. They just find new ways to watch over us." Maya followed his gaze. For a moment she could almost see them. Her mother's smile, her father's eyes, both of them looking down at the daughter they'd raised for 5 short years and the woman she was becoming. "I love you, Mom and Dad," she whispered. "Thank you for making me brave." The wind picked up, rustling the trees, carrying her words toward the heavens, and somewhere, somehow, she felt them answer. The flight home was quiet. Maya slept most of the way, her head on Helen's shoulder, exhausted from the emotions of the day. Lucas was knocked out on Sarah's lap. Derek sat alone, staring out the window, lost in thoughts he'd never fully share. They landed at midnight. The drive to the house took 20 minutes. Derek carried Lucas inside while Sarah helped Helen navigate the front steps. Maya walked behind them, looking at this home she'd never expected to have, the porch where she and Derek had sat under the stars, the yard where her birthday party had overflowed with love, the door that opened to rooms filled with family. She stopped on the threshold. "Maya." Sarah looked back. "You coming in?" "In a minute." Sarah nodded, understanding, and disappeared inside. Maya stood alone in the darkness, breathing in the night air. 2 years ago, she'd been invisible. A ghost drifting through a world that didn't see her, didn't care about her, didn't know she existed. She'd had nothing but a grandmother who was running out of strength, and a trailer that was falling apart, and the belief that things would never get better. Then she'd made a choice, not a big choice, not a calculated choice, just a small decision to step between pain and a child who needed protection. And everything had changed. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was seen, heard, valued, loved by more people than she could count, protected by brothers she'd never met, known by a nation that had watched her story unfold. But more than that, more than the fame and the law and the center, with her name on it, she'd learned something that would carry her through whatever came next. Courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about being afraid and acting anyway. It was about seeing wrong and refusing to accept it. It was about standing up, even when standing up cost you everything. She'd been brave on that playground. She'd been brave in the hospital. She'd been brave at the Capitol, speaking to presidents and senators and millions of people watching from home. And she'd keep being brave. Tomorrow and the day after and every day for the rest of her life. Because that's what Maya Chen Rawlings did. She stood up. Maya walked inside and closed the door behind her. The house was warm, safe, home. She climbed the stairs to her room. Purple walls, overflowing bookshelf. Lucas's drawing framed above her bed and changed into her pajamas. She brushed her teeth. She looked at herself in the mirror. 10 years old, small for her age. Survivor. Hero. She climbed into bed and pulled the covers up to her chin. Lucas's drawing caught the moonlight. 2 stick figures, one bigger, one smaller. The bigger one standing between the smaller one and danger. Above them, in wobbly crayon letters, "My sister, the hero." Maya smiled. She closed her eyes. And for the first time in 3 years, she fell asleep without being afraid of what tomorrow might bring. Because whatever came next, she'd face it the way she'd faced everything else. With courage, with family, with the knowledge that one small choice could change the world. People see a little girl and think fragile. They see poverty and think powerless. They see silence and think acceptance. But Maya Chen proved them all wrong. She stood up when standing cost her everything. She spoke when speaking meant facing giants. She chose love over hate, forgiveness over vengeance, hope over despair. And in doing so, she showed the world what real strength looks like. Not in the size of your fists or the balance of your bank account. In the fire of your heart and the courage of your convictions. That's Maya's legacy. That's her gift to every child who feels invisible, every grandmother fighting alone, every person who wonders if one choice can really make a difference. It can. It does. It did. So wherever you are, whatever you're facing, remember this. You don't have to be big to be brave. You don't have to be powerful to make a difference. You just have to be willing. Willing to see wrong and stand against it. Willing to help strangers who need protecting. Willing to speak when everyone wants you silent. Maya Chen was 8 years old when she changed the world. You're never too small, never too young, never too powerless. Stand up. The world is watching. And somewhere out there, 830 bikers are ready to ride.